Okay, this is another workflow tip for Aperture. If you're going to be using Aperture in the field on a laptop and then you eventually want to go back to your desktop and transfer the pictures, this is one way to do it. In the field, you would be using an external hard drive to store your images. You would not store them on the laptop itself. Perhaps you don't have enough space, or you just want to have a central place where you're keeping all your images. So let me just go through that for a second. So here we are. We have our card and we have our pictures that the camera took, and I'm going to transfer them to my external drive, which I have here. Okay, so here's my external drive. Let me open up this folder again. Okay, so I'm taking pictures off the card and transferring them to the external drive. Okay. So, okay, the pictures are now on my external drive. And let me eject the card. So now we're going to go into Aperture and we're going to import these images. And let me get to Aperture here. Okay, so we're going to import these images as reference files. Aperture works sort of like iPhoto, where it could it could store the images inside its own library, which means it would actually copy them from the place that you stored them and put them in its own database. What we're going to do is we're going to leave them alone. We're going to leave them on the external hard drive. We're not going to have Aperture install them in its library. So I'm going to get to this. So we click on the import button and we navigate to the external drive, and here are the pictures. So what we're going to look at is over here on the right, it says store files in the Aperture library. Well, we're going to click on that and we're going to say leave in their current location. That way Aperture will leave the pictures where they are and just bring in thumbnails and use these as reference images. This is also a place where you can start adding your basic metadata to. So let me just add some quick metadata to the pictures, okay, and some keywords that I've got already stored. Okay, and so we're going to import these into the Aperture library as reference files, and making sure that all these buttons are checked. Do not import duplicates. That will keep you from importing the same picture twice. Okay, and I'm just going to hit import all, and they should import fairly fast. There's only 5 pictures, and because they're reference files, it only imported the thumbnails of them, and the original pictures are still on the hard drive. You can tell through Aperture what a referenced file is by looking at this little icon here. It's a little rectangle with an arrow. That means that the image is referenced. And we can also double check that by right-clicking on a picture and saying show in Finder, and it will indeed show me that it's stored on the hard drive. So this is not stored in Aperture's library. It's stored on the external hard drive. So, you know, we're working in the field. We have an external drive which we're storing our pictures on because we don't have enough room on our laptop to store all these raw files. And we're going to do some work on some pictures. Let me just name the project. I'm going to rename it Field Project. Okay, so what we have here, let me just work on this picture. I'm going to double click and make it a little larger. I'm going to adjust the, let's see, I'll just adjust the white balance to cloudy. Oh, that's actually not good. Sorry, I can't let that stand. I'm just going to go back to daylight here. And I'm just going to increase the, let's see, the exposure a little, and the brightness, and some of the contrast, and some of the vibrancy, just so we can see that I've done something to the picture. Okay, and then I can add more metadata should I want to the picture. For instance, I can add a caption and say this is a bearded iris, I was told. Okay, so now this information is stored within Aperture's project. Let me go back to hitting the V key to go back to the browser view. Okay, so we're in the field, we come home, and now we want to get these pictures onto our desktop, and let's do that. The way to do that, actually, is to select the project that you want to get onto your desktop and go to the File menu, and go Export Project. Okay. And a little dialog box will come up, tell you where you want to put it. For instance, I'm just going to put it on my desktop. And this button here says Consolidate Images into Exported Project. Well, this means that if we check this, Aperture would gather those pictures from the hard drive, the external hard drive that they're stored on, and stuff them into a package that would include the entire project and all the metadata. Since we have the images hooked up to an external hard drive, and what we will do is hook that external hard drive up to our desktop, I'm going to leave this checked off because there's no reason to have the pictures duplicated for this one workflow. So I'm going to leave this off, and that means the project that will get put onto our desktop is just going to have the metadata. It's going to have the thumbnails, and it's not going to have the original raw files. So let me just hit save. It's going to be called Field Project. I'm going to hit save. And down here it's telling me it's exporting the project. Okay, and it's done. So if I drop this down, we can see in our desktop there is this package called fieldproject.ap project. This is a package file which you can actually right click and open, and you can see there's lots of little files in here, and there's 5 folders, each representing each of the pictures. And if we open them up, there would be all the data that Aperture needs to import. So we're just going to close this down. Okay, now we're on our desktop version of Aperture, and I've opened it up, and we need to import that project. Now, what I'm going to do is go to the File menu, go to Import, Import Projects. I'm going to navigate to desktop. There it is, fieldproject.ap project. I'm going to hit Import, and bingo. Project is now in our library folder. If I click on it, I see the thumbnails of the 5 pictures. But one thing I'm noticing is that the little referenced image here, the icon, has a rectangle and an arrow. It also has a little red slash through it. That means that the image is the reference file is not found. Remember, we unmounted the external hard drive from the laptop. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug that external hard drive into my desktop, and let's do this. Okay, so I unmounted it. Sorry, excuse me. I mounted the external drive, and you can see just as I did that, the icons went back to losing. They don't have the little red line through it, which means now the file can be found. So if I right click on that and I say show in Finder, it shows me that the images are indeed on the external hard drive. Okay, well that's great. So the project is in here, and you can see that this one has all the adjustments that I made. It even has the metadata that I added, bearded iris. So the project has been successfully installed on the desktop version of Aperture. What I realized is that I don't want to have these pictures referenced on that external hard drive. I need that external hard drive for the next time I shoot. I have a place on my computer where I store my main raw files. So, well, how do I get them there? Well, I could just go to the Finder. Let me get to the Finder here. Could go to the Finder and go to the external hard drive where those files are stored, and I could manually copy them. Let's say this is my main hard drive, and this is where I store my images. I could manually copy them to this folder. But why don't we let Aperture do all the work for us instead of doing it manually. That way Aperture can easily keep track of where the pictures are. So just close these up. I'll go back to Aperture here. And what we're going to do is we're going to select all the pictures from the project, and we're going to go to the File menu, and we're going to go to Relocate Masters. Okay, this is Aperture's way of moving the original files to wherever you want them to be finally stored. So we obviously get our regular open dialog box, and we're going to tell Aperture, well, we want to open up this hard drive in this folder, Image Archive, and this is where I want to store those pictures. Aperture will copy those pictures to this folder. Once I hit Relocate Master, and we can see it's copying, and bingo, it's done. Now if I right click on this picture and say show in Finder, it should now show me that it's in the new folder, and it is, Image Archive on my Macintosh hard drive. So that is one way to have your pictures managed through Aperture, and one way for you to work in the field on a laptop and then transfer all your pictures eventually to your desktop. I hope you find this useful, and if you have any questions, you can just Twitter me at amrosario. That's AMROSARIO. I'm on Twitter. Feel free to ask me any questions, and hope you found this useful. Thanks.